My wife cheated on me with our investment broker, then stole $250, $0 from our joint account to fund her affair. Now she's claiming I'm trying to ruin her before our divorce court battle over the house and inheritance money worth over $1 million. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing about how my wife, Lisa, turned out to be nothing but a lying, cheating bitch. Honestly, my life's straightforward, married to her for 10 years, a decent job, a nice house, and what I thought was a good future. We had our problems, sure, but nothing that seemed insurmountable. Then one day, everything shattered. It started with small things. Lisa was acting a little weird, more distant than usual. She'd come home late from book club, but I'd notice her phone was always locked and she'd get defensive if I asked about it. She'd brush it off, say I was paranoid or insecure, but I knew something was up. I didn't want to believe it, but I had this gnawing feeling that I was missing something. Then, one night, I decided to check her phone. I know trust is supposed to be there. But after months of her dodging questions, I couldn't help myself. I was just curious, really. So I grabbed her phone while she was in the shower. I saw a string of messages with some guy named Jake. At first, I thought maybe they were just friends, but the way she was talking, flirty, intimate, even suggestive, I knew this was more than just friendly banter. What made my stomach drop was a message she sent late at night. "Can't wait to see you tonight. I've been thinking about you all day." That was the moment I realized my wife was cheating on me. It wasn't just a flirtation, she was having an affair. And the worst part, she was doing it with our investment broker, a guy named Mark who she had been meeting secretly for months. I found receipts, calendar entries, and even a hotel reservation under a fake name. She'd been sneaking around, lying to my face and spending our joint money, about $250, $0 on her affair. I was stunned. I felt like the ground had opened beneath me. How could she do this? How could she betray everything we built together? I didn't want to believe it at first. I thought, maybe I was overreacting, maybe it was just a misunderstanding, but the evidence was clear. And the more I looked, the more I found. Hidden credit card statements, hotel receipts, and most painfully, a stash of texts where she was planning to meet him again. I confronted her that night. I was furious, trembling with rage and heartbreak. I told her what I knew, laid out the evidence. She looked at me with that typical bitchy smirk she always had when she was trying to manipulate a situation. She said I was crazy, that I was imagining things. She called me paranoid, accused me of spying on her just because I was insecure. She said I was trying to ruin her before the divorce court even started, that I was jealous and controlling. But I knew better. I knew what I saw, and I knew she'd been lying for months. Her reaction was infuriating. She told me I was overreacting, that she loved me but needed something more. That she was just having fun, that it meant nothing. She said I was making a huge deal out of nothing and that I should just accept her needs. I felt my blood boil. How could she be so callous? How could she sit there and lie to my face after all the nights I'd been supportive and trusting? The emotional hit me hard. I felt shock, then anger, then deep sadness. I couldn't believe the woman I married, the woman I thought was my partner, was capable of this betrayal. It felt like my world was collapsing. I spent the next few days in a haze, trying to process what I'd learned, trying to decide if I could even trust her enough to work through it. But deep down, I knew that the damage was done. The trust was shattered, and no matter how much she lied or begged, I couldn't unsee what I'd found. I started planning my next move. Part of me wanted to forgive her, to pretend it never happened. But another part, the part that was angry and betrayed, knew I had to fight back. I wasn't just going to let her walk all over me. She had stolen $250,000 from our joint account to fund her affair. How could I just forget that? I decided I'd get a lawyer, figure out the legal mess, and make sure she paid for what she'd done. I don't know what the future holds now. I'm hurt, angry, and betrayed more than I ever thought I could be. But I also know I can't let her get away with this. Not without consequences. The next steps are clear. I'm going to fight for my rights, for my money, and for some kind of justice. I just hope I can come out of this somehow intact. After that night of confrontation, everything changed. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. My mind kept circling around her lies, her betrayal, and the fact that she'd stolen $250,000 from our joint account to fund her affair. That was no small thing. That was our future, our security, all gone because she decided to chase some idiot broker and some fleeting thrill. It made me sick to my stomach just thinking about it. I started digging deeper into the financial mess she'd left behind. I pulled bank statements, looked through every transaction, anything that could give me a clearer picture. What I found was shocking. She had drained the account over several months, gradually siphoning off money. Every time she met with Mark, the broker, the receipts I found showed hotel stays, fine dinners, and expensive gifts, all paid for with our money. She'd been spending our savings, our retirement fund, to fund her secret life. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut every time I saw a new charge. I couldn't believe how brazen she was about it. She kept lying, claiming she was just going out with friends or handling business when I questioned her. But I knew better. I'd seen the texts, the bank transfers, the hotel bookings. She was deep into this affair and had no intention of stopping. The betrayal cut so deep that I started to question everything: our marriage, her love, her honesty. I wondered how I'd missed all the signs, how she managed to keep it hidden for so long. The worst part was her reaction when I confronted her again after I'd gathered the evidence. She called me paranoid, said I was imagining things, that I was just insecure because I didn't trust her. She accused me of trying to control her, of being jealous. She even said I was ruining her life, trying to ruin her reputation. Before the divorce court even started, but I knew the truth. I had seen the proof with my own eyes. I wasn't going to let her gaslight me into doubting what I knew was real. Meanwhile, she was still acting bitchy, dismissive, and manipulative. She'd throw fits, accuse me of being unreasonable, and try to turn the tables on me. It was classic gaslighting. She'd say I was overreacting, that I was making a mountain out of a molehill, that I should just forget about the money and focus on saving the marriage. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I knew she was lying, and I knew she was trying to manipulate the situation to her advantage. I decided I needed legal help. I contacted a divorce attorney who specialized in financial disputes and infidelity cases. I wanted to know exactly what I was dealing with, what my rights were, what she was liable for, and how I could protect what was mine. The lawyer told me that since the money was stolen from our joint account with intent to hide it, I had a solid case for financial fraud and recovery. The next step was to get a court order to freeze her accounts and start the process of dividing our assets. But here's the thing that really burned me. She was now claiming I was the one trying to ruin her. She painted herself as the victim, saying I was trying to destroy her reputation, ruin her chances of inheriting her family's estate, and sabotage her future. She's been spinning this story that I'm the villain, that I'm the one who's been trying to control her and stop her from living her life. I couldn't believe how she was twisting everything around, even as I had all the evidence staring right at me. Honestly, I felt a mix of rage and despair. Rage because she betrayed me so badly, and despair because I wondered if I'd ever recover from this. How do you come back from finding out your wife has been sleeping around with your broker and stealing your savings? It felt like my life was falling apart, piece by piece. I was angry at her, furious at the whole situation, but also deeply hurt. I loved her once, believed in us, and now I was left with nothing but the wreckage of what we'd built. I started planning my next move. I decided I wasn't going to let her walk away with everything, not without a fight. I'd dig in my heels, fight for the house, the inheritance, and make sure she paid for her betrayal. I knew it wouldn't be easy. She'd lie, cheat, and manipulate her way out of it if she could. But I had the evidence, I had the law on my side, and I was determined not to let her ruin me completely. I also realized I needed to get my head straight. I was emotionally drained, but I knew I had to stay focused. There was no room for weakness now. I had to be smart, patient, and relentless. I wasn't just fighting for money, I was fighting for my dignity, my future, and the truth. The betrayal had cut so deep, but I wasn't going to let her win. Not without a fight. The legal process moved faster than I expected after I retained the lawyer. Once I handed over all the evidence, texts, bank statements, hotel receipts, the lawyer was quick to act. We filed for an emergency injunction to freeze her accounts and started the process of uncovering exactly how. much she had stolen, and where it all went. Honestly, I felt a strange mix of relief and anger seeing the wheels turn so quickly. Finally, I was doing something, taking control. But Lisa, true to form, did her best to turn the tables. She started claiming I was trying to ruin her reputation before the divorce even went to court. She called me paranoid and accusing me of invading her privacy. She said I was just jealous, that I didn't understand her needs, and that I was trying to control her life. She insisted she loved me, that she'd never cheat or steal from me intentionally, and that I was just making baseless accusations. I couldn't believe her. She's always been good at lying, but this was next level. She'd spin stories faster than I could keep up, trying to paint herself as the victim. Meanwhile, she kept insisting she was innocent, that the money was just a mistake, and that her relationship with Mark was innocent. I knew better. I had seen the texts, the hotel bookings, the secret meetings. There was no way she was just dating him casually. She was sleeping with him, funding her affair with our money, and lying through her teeth about it. The emotional toll was brutal. Every time I thought I was making progress, she'd come back with some new lie or manipulative excuse. She'd say I was trying to ruin her future, that I was just jealous of her happiness. She even accused me of trying to control her because I wanted to see her phone, to understand what was going on. I was so furious I could barely see straight. How dare she call me controlling when she was the one sneaking around behind my back? At one point, she went as far as to claim that I was trying to sabotage her inheritance prospects. She said I was jealous of her family's wealth and that I was trying to keep her from getting her rightful inheritance money. Over $1 million, she claimed. She argued that I was trying to destroy her before the court could decide on the house, the estate, everything. That's when I realized she was willing to lie even more to save her own ass. She was spinning a web of bullshit, and I was just trying to untangle it. Meanwhile, I kept pushing forward with the legal side. The lawyer managed to get a court order to freeze her assets temporarily. We also hired a forensic accountant to trace the missing $250, $0. She had transferred it into her personal accounts, and I suspected she was using it to fund her lifestyle and her affair with Mark. I felt sick every time I looked at the numbers, knowing that she'd used our shared savings as her personal ATM. That money was supposed to secure our retirement, pay for our kids' education someday, and now it was gone. Her reaction to all this was to double down on her lies. She'd call me an obsessive control freak, accuse me of spying on her, and say I was just trying to ruin her reputation out of jealousy. She'd scream that I was the one cheating, because she had this bizarre idea that I was secretly hiding something, even though I had no reason to. I was just trying to get the truth out in the open. But every time I pressed her, she'd get defensive, lash out, and try to turn the situation around on me. I won't lie, it was exhausting. Every day brought new battles, new lies, new manipulations. I felt like I was fighting a war on multiple fronts, but I knew I couldn't give up. I had to stay strong, keep pushing, and make sure I got every piece of evidence I could, because I knew she'd do everything to spin the story her way, to make herself look like the victim and me the villain. That's what narcissists and manipulators do. The hardest part was the emotional toll. I loved her once, believed in us, and now I was watching her lie, cheat, and steal right in front of my eyes. It hurt more than I can say. I kept questioning myself. How could I have missed all the signs? Was I blind? Was I just a fool for trusting her? But I also knew I had to face the reality. This wasn't just a bad phase or a misunderstanding. It was her betrayal, plain and simple. And I was determined to see justice done, no matter how ugly it got. I started talking to friends, trying to process all of this. Some told me to fight for the house, the inheritance, and to make her pay for what she'd done. Others said I should just walk away and forget her. Honestly, I didn't know what to do. All I knew was that I couldn't let her get away with stealing from me, lying to my face, and destroying what we had. I was pissed, hurt, and more determined than ever to hold her accountable. I wasn't going down without a fight. The court hearings started rolling in faster than I expected, and honestly, I was glad for it. I needed to put a stop to her lies, her manipulations, and most importantly, her attempt to walk away with everything she'd stolen. The legal team was relentless, gathering more evidence, subpoenaing bank records, and preparing for the inevitable showdown. Each day, I felt a little more like I was taking back control, but the emotional toll was still heavy. Every time I saw her in court, her bitchy smirk made my blood boil. Lisa, true to her nature, played the victim at every turn. She sat there with her perfect fake smile, denying everything, claiming I was trying to ruin her reputation. She insisted she was innocent, that she'd never stolen a dime, that her relationship with Mark was purely emotional, and that I was just jealous. She even went as far as to say I was trying to sabotage her inheritance prospects, like she was some innocent victim of my paranoia. It made me sick to see her spin her web of lies with such ease. Meanwhile, I had the evidence to prove otherwise. The forensic accountant uncovered that she had transferred the stolen $250, $0 into multiple personal accounts and even used some of it to fund her lifestyle. Luxury hotels, designer clothes, new jewelry, all paid for with our joint savings. It was blatant theft, and I knew the court could see through her lies. I felt a strange sense of relief knowing I had the facts on my side, but the emotional damage was still raw. Every hearing felt like a fresh wound. Her lawyer tried to paint her as a victim, claiming she was misunderstood and that her relationship with Mark was innocent. She even claimed that I was abusing her emotionally by questioning her, that I was trying to control her life. I couldn't believe how far she'd go. The court saw right through her bullshit, though. The evidence was overwhelming. The texts, the bank transfers, the hotel receipts, they all pointed to her guilt. But her manipulative tactics weren't going to stop me from fighting for what's right. In the meantime, I learned that she had also been trying to manipulate the inheritance process. She claimed I was trying to keep her from her rightful money, that I was jealous and possessive, and that I was trying to ruin her future. She insisted she deserved that inheritance and that I was trying to block her from getting it. That just made me angrier. She was willing to lie, cheat, and steal her way into whatever she wanted, including her family's estate. I knew I had to stop her before she drained everything. One of the most shocking moments came during the court sessions when she accused me of cheating on her. She claimed I was unfaithful, that I'd been secretly seeing someone else, and that I was the real villain. I was stunned. I'd never cheated, never even thought about it, but her desperation to turn the tables was clear. She was grasping at straws, trying to paint me as the bad guy to distract from her own guilt. It was pathetic, really. Throughout all this, I was fighting a wave of conflicting emotions: anger, betrayal, sadness, and even guilt. Guilt for loving her so much, for trusting her, and for believing in our future. But I also knew I couldn't let her get away with what she'd done. The more I fought, the clearer it became that she was a liar and a thief, and I was determined to hold her accountable. The worst part was realizing how much she'd manipulated everyone around her, our friends, family, even her own lawyer. She was good at spinning stories, at making herself look innocent, and at convincing others that I was the bad guy. But I wasn't going to let her win that way. I had the evidence and I had the truth. That's what mattered now. As I sat through those court sessions, I kept thinking about everything that had led to this point. The betrayal, the lies, the stolen money, everything. I kept asking myself if I could ever forgive her, if I could ever trust her again. But deep down, I knew that the damage was too deep. Trust, once broken like that, is almost impossible to repair. And I didn't want to be with someone who'd lie and cheat her way through life. I wanted justice, and I was going to get it, no matter how long it took. The court hearings dragged on, but each session felt like a small victory. I could see the cracks in Lisa's carefully constructed facade. Her stories kept unraveling under cross-examination, and her attempts to deny the theft and affair grew more desperate. She'd sit there in her designer clothes with that smug, bitchy smirk, trying to act innocent. But I knew better. I had all the proof: texts, bank statements, hotel receipts, and witness statements from the forensic accountant. One day, during a particularly intense hearing, her lawyer tried to argue that the money she took was for emotional support and personal expenses, not theft. I looked right at her and saw her flinch. I couldn't believe she was trying to justify stealing $250,000 as some kind of need. The court wasn't buying it. The judge looked at her with a mixture of skepticism and disgust. I felt a little hope that finally justice might be served. Meanwhile, Lisa kept spinning her stories, trying to paint herself as the wronged wife. She claimed I'd been emotionally abusive, that I was trying to control her, that I'd been secretly unfaithful, that I'd driven her to seek comfort elsewhere. It was laughable. All I'd ever wanted was honesty and trust. Instead, I got lies, betrayal, and theft. Her accusations only made me more determined to see her held accountable. The most shocking moment came when the forensic accountant. She laid out the trail of stolen money, how it was transferred into multiple accounts, and how she'd used some of it for her lavish lifestyle. The court saw clearly that this wasn't just a mistake or a misunderstanding. It was outright theft, planned and executed over months. The judge looked at Lisa and asked if she had anything to say. She just sat there, silent, her face devoid of her usual bitchy smirk. She knew she was cornered. On that day, I felt a surge of relief mixed with anger. The evidence was undeniable. I knew I had done everything I could to prove her guilt. But what hurt more than anything was the realization that this betrayal was going to cost me dearly, financially, emotionally, and in terms of trust. I was starting to accept that I might never fully recover from this. And yet I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I was finally taking steps to protect myself and my future. Lisa's reaction to the proceedings was to try to manipulate everyone, her lawyer, the court, even her own family. She claimed that I was trying to ruin her, that I was the one who'd been unfaithful and controlling. She insisted she loved me, that her affair was just a mistake, and that she never meant to steal from our joint account. But her words sounded hollow now. I saw through her lies. I knew she was just trying to save herself, to spin a story that would make her look innocent. Meanwhile, I was preparing for the final phase. I had already filed for divorce, and now I was fighting for the house and the inheritance. The court was going to decide who deserved what, and I was determined to get my fair share back. I'd been betrayed, yes, but I wasn't going to let her walk away with everything. Not after what she'd done. I had to stand up for myself and for what was right. In the midst of all this chaos, I realized how much I'd changed. I'd gone from trusting and hopeful to cautious and guarded. I'd learned that sometimes the people you love the most can turn out to be the biggest liars. And I'd learned that money, especially shared money, can be a weapon in the wrong hands. I knew I'd never see her the same way again, but I also knew I had to move forward. For my own sanity, for my future, and for the chance to rebuild what I'd lost. The final court date was approaching, and I was ready. I had the evidence, the law on my side, and a determination to get justice. I didn't know what the outcome would be, but I knew one thing. I wouldn't let her destroy me without a fight. I'd face whatever came next head on. Because after everything, I realized I deserved better, much better, and I was finally prepared to claim it. The final hearing felt like the culmination of everything I'd been fighting for over these past few months. I sat there, a mixture of exhaustion and resolve, watching as the judge reviewed the mountain of evidence we presented. Lisa was there, her face pale and strained, trying to maintain that bitchy smirk, but I could see her eyes darting nervously. She knew she was cornered. The court had already seen through her lies, her manipulations, her stories about emotional support, her claims that I was the one trying to ruin her. When the judge finally spoke, her voice was clear and firm. She ordered the immediate division of assets, including the house, the inheritance, and the remaining funds. The court ruled that Lisa had stolen the $250, $0 from our joint account with malicious intent, and that she was liable to repay it. Her attempts to claim it was for emotional support or personal expenses were dismissed outright. The judge also awarded me primary custody of the kids, citing Lisa's ongoing dishonesty and manipulative behavior as factors. Hearing those words felt surreal. I had fought so hard, endured so much betrayal, and now, finally, I was getting some measure of justice. The weight of the betrayal still pressed heavily on my chest, but I felt a strange sense of relief. It was over, or at least, the worst was behind me. Lisa's reaction was a mix of anger and despair. She shouted, trying to argue her way out of it, claiming the court was biased, that I was out to ruin her, that she was the real victim. But the judge wouldn't have any of it. Her lies had been exposed, her theft proven beyond any doubt. As she was escorted out of the courtroom, her bitchy smirk had completely vanished, replaced by a look of fury and defeat. The aftermath was a blur. I started the long process of rebuilding my life. I secured the house, got the inheritance settled, and began the difficult task of healing. I knew this experience had changed me forever. I'd learned that trust is fragile, that people can hide their true selves behind a pretty face and a manipulative smile. I'd also learned the importance of standing up for myself, no matter how hard it gets. Looking back, I realize I'm stronger than I thought I was. I survived the betrayal, the theft, the lies. I learned that justice isn't always quick or easy, but it's worth fighting for. And I'm proud that I didn't let her destroy everything we had built without a fight. I hope my story serves as a warning: trust carefully, watch for the signs, and never let anyone steal your peace or your money. Because in the end, the truth will come out, and those who lie and cheat will have to face the consequences. I'm moving forward now with a cautious heart but a clearer mind. The past will always hurt, but I refuse to let it define me. I've learned that sometimes the best revenge is simply living well, without her, without the lies, and without the betrayal. And that's exactly what I plan to do.